our members get more just for banking with us, like chances to win sweepstakes, plus the convenience of online banking and our mobile app. Our members also help us give back through grants, scholarships, random acts of kindness, and more. Thousands of Arizonans have already joined Arizona's largest credit union, Desert Financial, located inside the Payson Walmart.
Well, good Tuesday morning, 3 minutes past 10 o'clock. We're already up to 66 degrees today. And hope you're having a great Tuesday morning out there. Time for KRIM's Community Spotlight. And with us in the studio today from Plant Fair Nursery out on Highway 260 in Star Valley, it's Glenn McComb. And Glenn, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Another fun day this side of paradise.
Oh, yeah.
Can't complain. So they keeping you busy out there?
Very busy, yeah.
I mean, I would assume that this time of year there's a big uptick in activity at Plant Fair Nursery.
Everybody's thinking it's spring,
right?
And it feels like spring,
right?
And it just may be spring.
Now, I know down, where I'm at down in Tonto Basin, boy, our rose bushes are blooming and a lot of things happening. But here in Payson at this elevation right now, what's the main thing that you see folks doing in their gardens? Is it just getting ready, or people already got lettuce and things like that growing, or what's the
both? Yeah. So there's a couple of different kinds of gardeners. There's gardeners that go for the winter stuff like lettuce and spinach and broccoli and cabbage and radishes and all that kind of stuff. Then there are those who just wait until it's time to put in tomatoes and peppers, salsa type gardens. And those are the ones that are really getting anxious. The ones that already have the spinach and all that are probably already in, and they're just waiting for them to mature because they don't mind the cold weather. But here we are almost late April. What are we, the third week, I think, in April. And good for all that spinach stuff, but spinach and lettuce. But when it comes to tomatoes and peppers, it really is just too early. And we have a lot of newcomers here in Rim Country. I mean, a lot of Californians coming in where they just spit a seed out and come back 10 days later and they got a bush. Well, that isn't the way it is here. And we're hoping to educate people that even though it seems like spring, we have until mid to late May where we can still freeze, and probably will.
Well, I remember my first about 20 years in Rim Country, and this goes back, 40 years ago. The first 20 years here, I lived next door to a guy out in Upper Round Valley. John Orr was his name. He's passed away now, but always had an amazing garden every year.
I remember John.
And he always said, never get your tomatoes in the ground before Memorial Day. Does that sound pretty accurate?
That's right.
I know we have, matter of fact, National Weather Service is talking today about possibly next Monday and Tuesday, or maybe Sunday and Monday, a slight chance for rain and even snow. And they didn't say, they're not making predictions yet as to what elevation the snow will be at, but it's kind of strange to still be even hearing that word in a weather forecast. So,
well, it's the temperature and the weather has just gone up and down. It's just unbelievable. We're in Star Valley, so we're just a little bit colder than the folks up in Payson. And so I think we were like 34 this morning.
Wow.
And 34 is nudging pretty close to 32, which is freezing in anybody's book. And peppers and tomatoes just don't like that kind of stuff. So it's a matter of timing. Getting the timing down right. Now, a lot of folks are buying tomatoes and peppers right now, and we have them for sale, certainly, but then they're putting them on the back porch, they're putting them in pots, growing them up a little bit, and also, judging from the last 2 years, especially last year, COVID year, you couldn't buy anything. So people are out there getting it now while the getting's good.
Outstanding. And now you mentioned that there's been a big influx of folks that have moved here from California. I think all of us are familiar with that. But for people that maybe haven't been here very long, but they've really got that itchy green thumb that's wanting to get after it at this time of year. With the soil composition and everything here, what are some of the main things that you got to make sure that you're amending your soil with right now just to be ready for this?
Well, the whole key is just composted mulch of some kind. I mean, there's a zillion different bags you can buy. All of them have their own benefits. But basically, we're in granite soils. We have granite, we have clay.
And granite's not really known for nutrients necessarily.
Actually, granite has nutrients in it.
Really?
It's locked because there's no organic mixed with the granite to unlock it. So when you start mixing mulch in with it, or composted mulch, then you begin adding nutrients, and then that begins the breakdown process of granite. My brother is a cactus grower down in Apache Junction,
right?
And he uses granite. He grinds it and uses it as a top dressing because of the nutrients on his cactus. So, and of course, they don't require that much nutrient, not like a tomato plant, for instance. But,
right.
So there is some in there. So I think that's rather laborious as far as I'm concerned. I don't know that I'd be grinding granite, but he does it.
Yeah.
And so here we just want to get that compost in there. We want to start the process. And because our plants are going to have to live within that granite anyway, so they're going to have to get established, find their way into the good stuff that you made up, like your own soil,
right.
And then they're going to have to live going into that granite without anything in it, because you can't dig your whole entire property up and mix compost with it.
Sure. Now, and speaking broad brushstroke concepts here, as far as the folks that come to you this time of year and are wanting to get a garden going, are most of them looking at growing some form of food, or you get a lot of people just growing flowers and things like that too, or?
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
I think right now the seems to be that everybody's looking for some kind of food. They're mostly vegetable gardens, but certainly there's a lot of flowers going on, a lot of petunias and pansies and that type of stuff. A lot of perennials. Perennials are really been almost a boom in the last few years, because perennials you plant once and nurture them. They come back every year. Annuals you put in the ground every year.
Right.
But there's advantages to both. Perennials you put in the ground, and they may come back every year, but they only bloom for a while. So, for instance, Shasta daisy is a real popular one, white daisy. And it's a great plant, but then it takes a long time for it to actually go into bloom. And then it blooms more toward mid to late summer, and then it's pretty well done, and then it comes back. And the whole biology of it is that it doesn't have to put out a lot of blooms, because the plant's going to maintain itself anyway.
Right.
And so it just is trying to reproduce itself, but it doesn't have to do it all at once and with loud colors. So it just maintains itself that way. Where annuals is the opposite. Since it's only 1 year, it's got to get those flowers out.
Right.
It's got to get pollinated, and it has to throw seeds in order to keep going for survival.
You know, we were, before going on the air today, we were joking around in the lobby here at KRIM, and you mentioned something that I guess I kind of was shocked by, in that, with the legalization of marijuana, people are being allowed to grow a certain number of plants at home and stuff like that. And today, of course, being 420, which is a big day for those folks. I was kind of shocked to hear that you actually have had quite a few folks that have come to you for the right kind of soil amendment for what they're wanting to grow.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it's not necessarily cheap by the sound of it, but it sounds good.
It's like twice as much as a regular one, but it has all the component parts to grow good cannabis. So
and I didn't realize, I mean, you're talking about bat guano and a lot of different things that you typically, I don't hear about in my, any of the other stuff that I'm buying anyway.
Yeah, it's just a balance of fertilizers. Actually, it's akin to tomatoes. If you were to grow tomatoes in exactly the same potting soil or soils that you build yourself that you do for cannabis, you'd have fantastic tomatoes. They both kind of relate to each other. Back in the days before legalization, I would have people come in and say that they were growing tomatoes, but I kind of knew that maybe those weren't really tomatoes,
Right.
But they never said anything, and I never said anything.
Right.
But they were looking more for things that were specific to cannabis growing.
So if you want to try and fly in under the radar, just tell them you're looking for something to grow tomatoes in, and people will smirk at you, but that'll be it.
Yeah.
Interesting, though. And so you've actually noticed a big uptick in people that are specifically looking at
That's right.
that. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, so we're actually not, I have never grown cannabis, so
Right.
I actually don't know. I'm going by tomatoes.
Right.
And that's, my advice is based on growing a good tomato, and should be able to get the same.
Nothing like growing good tomatoes. Now, down in Tano Basin, we actually have tomatoes outside right now. And I think I'm hoping that we can get away with that. I don't think we have any more freezing going on down there, but knock on wood, one never knows. And that's really the big problem right now as far as getting tomatoes in the ground here is we always get these late frosts that would nip those in the bud, so to speak.
Yes, that's right. So that's the problem with tomatoes right now, and that's where timing comes in. And one of the things that we're going to talk about, and it will be a good segue into it right now, is we're going to, on KRIM, on the first Tuesday of every month from the rest of the year, we're going to talk about things that are appropriate for that month. So in May, we're going to talk about May, and actually May is the time to start thinking about that kind of stuff, even though everybody is thinking about tomatoes and peppers and salsa-type gardens, squashes, all that sort of thing. So we're going to be talking about those on the radio, and it's going to be at Plant Fair, and it's going to be on, I assume, Facebook.
Yeah, we're gonna actually not only be bringing it to you on the air here on KRIM, but also streaming it live on Facebook, so you can see exactly what we're talking about. And if you want to get some pointers on how to make your garden better than it is, this will be a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we're hoping that will be our gift, I guess you would say, to the community.
There you go. First Tuesday of the month.
First Tuesday of the month. Yeah.
Gotta love it. Now when it comes to, I want to go back for just a second and talk about growing foods. One of the things that I like to do is, because my wife and I are both foodies, we like to cook a lot. I like to grow different cooking herbs and stuff like that. Are there different types that do, particularly well here, and or some others that do particularly not so well here?
From my experience, I think you can grow just about anything here.
Mm-hmm.
I've always said that if you provide the environment, you can grow anything. You can grow orchids in Alaska.
Right.
All you need is a big, expensive greenhouse.
Yeah, there you go.
And it's the same way here. Your timing is what's important. You want to grow them at a time when they're actually going to be doing the very, very best here. If you want to grow tomatoes in the wintertime, then you have to provide the environment. So providing the environment means a greenhouse, means a heated greenhouse. It means using varieties that you're not used to. There are really weird name tomatoes that are greenhouse tomatoes. And that's why when you go to the store, you don't recognize really, you don't ever see beefsteak tomatoes in the grocery store. Matter of fact, they don't, they call them like vine tomato. Well, that has a specific name, but that's a greenhouse type tomato. Does well in a greenhouse, likes the heat and likes the controlled environment that it's growing in, and they get big production off of it. So I don't know where we're going with that.
No, that's interesting though. But what are some of the more common mistakes that you see? We talked about, obviously, everybody's anxious to get those tomatoes in the ground right now, and it's a little too early yet for better part of a month to do that here in the Payson elevation. But are there other mistakes like that you see people typically making every year?
Yeah, I think. Well, actually, it is basically timing. One of the mistakes that I see is if you're like folks that have just a weekend or a summer type place here, really needs to invest in a drip system with a clock or a timer, and that way it can be watered all summer. Those that are not, or all winter rather, those that are not here all winter long, maybe spend it in the valley, you have a real problem. So a mistake they may make is not coming up often enough, for instance, to water big trees. So we're seeing this year, especially after a drought last year, and I understand we're in a worse drought right now, that a lot of trees weren't watered last winter. So we're getting a dieback of maybe anywhere from 10% to 20% on top, just simply because there was not enough moisture in the ground to supply moisture to the top all winter long.
Right.
And that's where we need that snowpack. And we're seeing, for instance, oak trees, as I just now drove in from Star Valley, all along the roadway, there are lots and lots of oak trees that are actually dead. Now, that's not to be confused with the ones that are shedding.
Right.
So you see right now a lot of yellow oak trees, and they're really, all they're doing is the old leaves are turning yellow and falling off, but the new leaves are replacing it. The new leaves are pushing those yellow ones out. And so what you have is they're doing okay within the drought. But then there's a lot of those oaks that just simply lost it in the winter. A lot of them fell over because of shallow rooting, because our rainfall wasn't enough to really drive roots way down deep.
Right.
So they're kind of shallow, and so they were uprooted pretty easily. And without coming up and giving water to your landscape. The other mistake that I see is not paying attention to maybe bugs, differences in your trees, like from year to year. We're not seeing an awful lot of like bark beetle, for instance, that we had a few years ago, but there is some. And we highly recommend that every year, like right around March, or even right now, March or April, that you put a good systemic insecticide around those real valuable trees, and that will keep them clean from bugs. So
this is on the ground?
This is on the ground. You just dump a 5-gallon bucket of this around it, the tree takes it up, and they're set for a whole entire year.
Wow.
And those types of things, there's a lot of controversy with that. You know, people don't, a lot of folks don't want anybody using any kind of chemical on the ground. There are organics that you can spray, but it's a constant spray. You'd have to do it every month or two to really keep that same population down that you would just with that simple 5-gallon bucket going in around it. And it's only once a year. It's not just an absolute constant thing. And that way you're keeping the bugs out. But failure to notice until it's too late is part of it. So, like right now, we haven't seen it yet, but we're going to see tree aphids here pretty soon.
All right.
You're going to have those little guys all up in the trees, and they can be sprayed with an organic, which will knock them off. Or we sell ladybugs, and true story, at the nursery, I think it's been 4 or 5 years ago now, I went out one day and there was those Arizona white firs that I have right along the side of the big pond. Those were just crawling. I went up and looked at them. They were tree aphids on there. You could literally, it looked like the tree was moving.
Whoa.
And so that night I put a couple of tubs of ladybugs underneath each one of them in the crotches of those trees.
Right.
And within 2 days there was absolutely no tree aphids left at all. Those ladybugs had the time of their life.
Of course, you had some 4-pound ladybugs, but
yeah. Well, you know, they look the same to me.
Yeah, I hear you.
I don't know. They.
I find them to be kind of interesting. I know here a few years ago I was reading up on that, and I didn't realize that they do their little annual romancing up on mountain peaks. And I was up at the top of Mount Ord at the transmitter site up there, and found a rocky area that was just covered in ladybugs. And I had no idea that they had to go to such extremes to do their dating.
What they do is they release ladybugs down in the valley in the fields, and then it starts getting hot. So those ladybugs are going to start heading north. So the pattern, I haven't researched it recently, but within the last few years, they would go a little higher, like up into the Verde Valley. Mm-hmm. And then from the Verde Valley would start to heat up, and then they'd start working their way up the mountains, up towards Strawberry. Mm-hmm. And then they would come right around the Strawberry area, right on down into Payson, and then on their way to Young. And I never really figured out where they go after Young, but they go all into the Sierra Anchas there, evidently. But I know that on Memorial Day, we went to Baker Butte one time, where they have the tower there, the fire tower, and there were ladybugs literally hanging off of all of those trees up there, 6 feet or more, just all clinging together. And they had all made the trip.
It's fascinating to watch.
Out of the valley, because it was getting hot down there. And like you say, then they do their mating ritual and move on from there.
So from the time, if you have a bad aphid infestation and you bring in a couple little tubs of ladybugs, they pretty much hang around until the food supply is depleted, don't they?
Right, they follow the food. So they'll clean it all off, and then there's nothing left for them to eat, so then they will move on. We haven't figured out how to breed loyalty into them yet.
Good luck with that. Why don't you work with Congress first? At any rate, when it comes to trees, I know last month when you were on, I commented that the place that we had here for 20 plus years in Payson, we had 4 or 5 apple trees that were just amazing, and you've never eaten a really good apple till you've eaten a tree ripened apple.
Right.
It's just a whole bunch different than what you get in the store. People that are looking at planting trees, whether it be for fruit or for shade, is this a good time of year to be thinking about that?
Yeah, actually, it's a good time. It's not a great time with availability right now. With COVID last year, uh, we literally sold into our 2021 crop, and so we are just about out. I think we have a few apples and some plums left for right now, and our new crop is not going to be ready probably till mid-May, maybe late May, depending on how well they root out.
Right.
So it's kind of disappointing for a lot of people who are coming in the nursery and say, well, I'd like to buy a peach tree, and go back and look where the peach trees are, and there's a big old hole there. There's nothing in there.
Right.
And we don't like that either, but in a normal year, we would have enough that would last until our new crop came on, and then the new crop comes, and then we pot up a whole bunch for our fall crop, and then that hangs over into the spring. Well, with everybody getting stimulus and sitting at home with nothing to do, and planting trees, and I mean, we're real grateful for all of that went on. I'm glad they thought of us to get those trees.
Right.
But it overwhelmed the trees or the growers, and then a lot of our growers are still only working with about 25% of their workers.
All right.
So they just can't produce them as fast as they would like, and it's not just in that field; it's in a lot of things. Fortunately, food, I'm not seeing food shortages like we did last year at this time, where you had to get to Bash's or Safeway or whatever early in order to get anything, or follow the truck.
Yeah.
So we haven't seen that yet, but it has a ripple effect down into the nursery industry.
Oh, very
so there's many things that we are just unable to get. We're in very stiff competition with other nurseries and other like the home improvement centers and that sort of thing. We're all trying to get the same trees. We're looking everywhere for the same trees. So kind of tough this year. But if it weren't for that, it would be a great time to do it. However, you can plant trees all summer long. Actually, you can start as early as February, March, where they don't have any leaves on them. Put them in the ground all the way, probably right up until November or so. Any time that you're ready to plant you could go ahead and give them a job, a hole.
Right. What's a good shade tree for this elevation?
I love maple trees. I think they've turned out to be really beautiful. I always think of the Catholic Church that's down there on Bradley,
right,
in Payson North, has got probably I have to count them, 4 or 5 of them down along in there. Just a beautiful green tree all summer long, and then they're just beautiful red in the fall. Just really put on a show. Another real desirable tree is, and a good solid grower is Arizona ash. So it has, it's just a real good tree. Big shade tree, almost infallible, grows in any one of our soils.
What about longevity? I know, like, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I go astray here, but like poplar trees, they grow fast, but they don't live a long time. How does, like, the ash that you're talking about?
Ash is long-lived.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's, although I'm not sure. Somebody a lot smarter than I am would have to go do some investigations. But trees have a little shorter lifespan in this granite than they do in and where there's dirt and where there had been millions of years of trees falling down and composting and giving some kind of soil. So what happens is I think it gets out in that granite, and the roots are constantly searching for good stuff to grow in, and all they're growing in is granite. I have trees right on my own property that there's a shelf right underneath where I planted them, and those roots are only down there 3 feet or so. So the tree is doing good, but not as good as it should with other than granite.
And as far as fruit trees, are there? I know apple trees. have grown good here. I know we had on our property, we had a peach and a pear tree, and it seemed like, we had peaches maybe once every 4 years. Seems like there was always a late frost that kind of zapped those puppies. But, I mean, are there particular kinds of fruit that do especially well here?
Well, apple's going to be number one.
Right.
And then the cold hardy ones like the delicious, yellow delicious, red delicious, the New Zealand ones, Fuji, Braden, or Braeburn rather, Honey Crisp has turned out to be a real good one. All do real well. Then second is going to be pears. Pears will give you the next crop after that because they bloom and they can hold on with a little bit of frost.
Right.
And then after that is cherry trees. The problem with cherries is the roots are a little bit more particular, so it's hard to get them to grow well in clay soil. So they need like a good well-drained soil, maybe granite and clay, so the water goes right on through and the roots can follow the water right on down. And then after that, now you have peaches and then plums and then apricots. Plums and apricots being the very first thing to bloom. So as soon as there's just a little tickle, I think by mid-March this year, we had plums just starting to bloom. Then they quit. Then they started it again in first part of April, and now I think most of them are just full blown. Last year by this time, I'm not sure if it was drought or what, but our trees in the nursery were all fully leafed out and really beautiful. And this year they're just starting to leaf out. It's kind of unusual. I think it had a lot to do with that real heavy snow we had, and then just all the weather that kind of went along with it.
Interesting. And I know with plums, with ours, you're right. I mean, they did seem like those were some of the first to blossom.
Yeah.
Yet frost didn't seem to affect them like it does like a peach tree, or at least not to the same degree.
Yeah, it could be but if it's going to get hit, it's if it freezes, if it gets just right down into even the upper 20s, I've noticed they can squeak through.
Right.
But if it's sustained, the problem with like our weather station, for instance, at the nursery, is we really don't know how long that was really that cold. So like we were 34 this morning. Well, how long was it 34? If it was like for 12 seconds, that doesn't really hurt anything, and that's not freezing anyway. Freezing is 32. So we really don't know. But if it's sustained, we get one of those big old troughs coming down out of Canada.
Right.
Then that's where we really freeze stuff. So.
Well, now I'm sure, I know we have a number of people. By the way, good morning to Tom, Renee, Dana, Anita, Christy, Alexis, Charmaine, Angie, Roberta, and Brenda all watching us on Facebook Live, as is Angela, Dory, Chastity, Cindy. We've had a bunch of people watching along there.
Oh.
And if people have other questions, can they just call down, or is it best to come on down and talk to somebody at Plant Fair?
Either way, if you have specific questions, we'll try to get them answered on the phone. Sure.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what are your hours down there now?
Well, we're still working 8:30 to 5 because we're still hanging on with that COVID thing, mostly because we're trying to keep our employees safe, and we're trying to have enough to cover all the people that do come in between 8:30 and 5. And so we hope to get to extend our hours here soon.
I tell you what, my experience has been that over many years, whenever it comes to having a question about what to grow, how to grow it, what it needs or doesn't need, I mean, you folks have always been just a wealth of information.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. And
Thank
we
you.
look forward to, again, starting next month, the first Tuesday of the month, we'll be doing this show live from Plant Fair Nursery, both on the air as well as on the web, and a chance for you to actually see what's going on at Plant Fair Nursery, and we look forward to doing that starting next month on the first Tuesday.
Me too. Looking forward to it.
All right, Glenn, thanks again for coming down and being with us, and thank you for tuning in and listening this morning to our Community Spotlight on KRIM. We have a bunch of different music to get to. Matter of fact, some tunes coming up from The Fix, Boston, Genesis, Heart, and a whole bunch more. But right now, time for a look at Rim Country weather.
Now here is the KRIM weather forecast for Payson and surrounding areas. I'm Nowcast meteorologist Jim Vaughn. For today, sunny skies and becoming